order. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. And I think we're gonna go over the articles, the warrant articles, and vote where necessary, and go from there.
The first one's Article 3.
Okay, so we'll start Article 3. I can't imagine I'm gonna read that word for word in its entirety, but basically I'm assuming everyone is up to date on that, but that,
Are these the final article numbers that won't change? So we can,
Yeah.
I would think just.
It makes,
reference
it makes my
articles,
next door neighbor a park. That's how I read it.
That's exactly,
Yeah.
A lot of words.
yeah,
that's
But-
exactly
Yeah.
right.
It makes my new next door neighbor will be a park
That's
that
right.
we don't have to pay for,
That's exactly right,
Yes.
right.
okay?
yeah.
Well, if you put it that way.
So I think the objective of this is strictly voting, less commentary, right?
Yeah.
Just to
Yep.
confirm, okay.
So somebody moves it, seconds it, and we vote.
I move we vote to approve Article 3.
Second. Okay, so let's take vote on a motion to approve Article 3. Everyone for? For.
You raise your hand or not?
Everyone against? Nope, I was for. 6.
You're doing great.
Everyone against, 0, 0
He
abstain.
had to drive all the way
We
down.
recommend.
All right.
Okay.
All right, next one is Article 4, with reference to the new West Rockport Fire Station. There's obviously a lot to that one, and it basically boils down to you're either for or against it or abstain. There is also a typo on that.
Where?
The extra period?
Well, it's 0 for, 0 against, 0 against, so at some point if you just go 0 abstain.
Oh, abstain.
Other than that, it looks good. Well, it looks worded well. Oh no. So we'll just go to, everyone in favor of Article 4.
We have to
Oh,
get a
wait, we
motion.
gotta make a motion. Who,
I move that we find Article 4 worthy of approval.
I second.
okay, so we've got a motion and a second.
Now, yes, for discussion.
So, is there any discussion on the motion
Yeah.
to approve Article 4?
As our firefighter here, where are you falling down?
Yeah.
I am against it. I think we need a new station, I just don't necessarily think we need to spend 3.8 million and then bond it to total a $7 million fire station.
Yeah, I was
In
trying to
West
figure through.
Rockport.
Yeah. Okay, so we're appropriating 7.3 from where?
No, so we're appropriating 3.7.
Yeah, did I say
Right.
3.7?
No, well,
You flipped it.
yeah, right, so we're appropriating 3.7, see, I do
Right.
now.
Okay,
See?
and where is that coming from?
That's coming from the voters through bonding over the course of 30 years.
Okay.
However, if Article 3 passes, the town will receive a gift in the amount of $1 million. That $1 million will lessen the amount that we are using to pay for the fire station, therefore we'll bond
Effectively
estimated.
saving us $2 million.
Oh, okay, so Lesher Foundation is giving us $1 million
Right,
if we approve the 3.7 bond.
No, the other way around.
No.
They're gonna, if we approve Article 3,
Oh, Article 3, back here.
Whether we
Okay.
approve Article 4 or not, we approve Article 3, we're still getting $1 million.
We still get the $1 million.
So the
Correct.
question is whether that's gonna lessen fire cessation or not, but either way, that money's coming in if it's approved.
yeah, it doesn't matter if the million goes to the fire station or
Sure.
not. And we assume that the select board will put the million towards the bond on the fire station.
Sure.
Okay,
right.
But whether or not that million goes to it or not,
The
we're s-
$1 million, if Article 3 is approved, the way this article is written, that $1 million has to go to the fire station.
Okay, so they did not think about applying some of it to the Opera House.
No,
Well, okay, that's sort of a tough, other section, is what they're gonna do with the Opera House.
yeah,
Okay,
we'll
okay,
get there though.
okay, so I presume somewhere there, before all of this gets voted on, there'll be some explanations in the, a little bit more than what's right here.
Just saying it.
Yeah, I think it will be written in non-legalese that
Okay.
will help people to understand.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause-
it is hard because it's one's contingent somewhat on the other in terms of the gift.
right,
And the other part is that the financial statement looks as though that we're borrowing and spending more than what we would because of the fact we don't know if Article 3 passes.
right.
So
okay.
we have to make it look as though we're gonna spend 3.7, we're gonna borrow 3.7 because we don't have certainty that Article 3 passes. If Article 3 doesn't pass, we still have to have,
The 3.7.
right.
Right,
If
so-
everyone's like, build the fire station, but we don't like the
Free
part.
money, yeah, right.
Right,
Right.
okay, so if Article
money,
3
yeah.
passes
I
and
mean,
Article 4
This one
passes,
is.
then the 1 million, then the 3.7 becomes 2.7.
Exactly.
Got, I'm,
2.7 that we have to bond, but the station
Right.
still
right. Oh,
costs.
yeah, I know, I'm just saying,
3.7.
I'm trying to figure out how people are gonna read this.
Closer to
And what-
3.8 if we're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's somewhere in there where, how it says how much, okay, so down below, it's how much the station will fully cost,
Yeah,
so.
Right.
If we bond the full amount.
And not the 2.7.
But compound interest being what it is, if we utilize the gift,
Yeah,
it actually doesn't knock just $1 million off the final
Right,
cost,
it's
it's,
in-
it's significantly
oh,
more.
God,
Almost 2 million.
interest rate's going, oh,
Yeah, like, I thought we were talking about this firehouse for years.
yeah.
Why didn't we do this when interest rates were 0 last year or 2 years ago and all that stuff? Well, I mean, I know that that's
Kick down the street.
hypothetical,
Great question.
but
No, I know. I think well, I mean, I wasn't here the whole time, but I think it takes some time to get the momentum, and obviously there's a
Sure.
lot of attention on the library and getting that project
Yeah.
completed. This project's been in the works, I mean, effectively, there was, the summer I started, we got estimates on construction of this building for $2 million.
right.
And then the
Started
per,
a couple years before that.
Yeah.
right, so then the per square foot price is gone to $600 to $800 a square foot. This is looking at around $530 with the bid we got from Maine Coast Construction, which is still insane, but it's the insanity that, I don't know, we're living in, I guess, where eggs can't be found and,
Quick,
I don't know.
quick question. If 3 passes,
Mhm.
what's next on the wish list if 4 doesn't pass? Cause it says on 3 in the town's sole discretion.
Yeah, right, so I think you'd have to go back to talk about what you're gonna do with 4. Because 4 sets the stage for, what are we doing in terms of EMS? We have to do something with that station,
Yeah.
full stop. So whether I don't know, I wanna speculate, but do we go back to the drawing board and try to find a piece of land in the middle of Route 90? Do we try to build a campus with everything there? Given how many years it took for us to get from, that starting point to here we are now, maybe interest rates will be lower, but the costs certainly won't be less.
Right, yeah.
That's the fear I have, is that the bid was 3.2, we're like 3.7 with the soft costs added in. Even if we were to wait until November and put this back out,
It's gonna go up again.
I feel like it will.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So this number 2 down below, the principal is the 3.7 that we're voting on. The interest rate is, wow,
4.2%.
3.2, for a total of 6.9.
Yeah,
But if 3 passes, then 3.57 becomes 2.7.
right,
Presumably the interest will drop a little bit and the total be a little
Right.
bit.
The interest drops by about almost $1 million.
Oh, nice. Yeah, okay,
so total is more like 4.99 rather than,
Right, 6.9.
okay. So we have a motion and you wanna call the question?
Yeah, any more discussion on it? Okay.
Well, I'm late to jump in. I think one of the really important things is that, you know, there may be some people that feel it's too big or too fancy or whatever your negative feelings towards it are. But the functions that this building has been asked to fulfill have changed constantly over the last 10 years. And I think one of the most important things is the little bit of increase in space, adding on to it and what have you for EMS. Because that's, you know, we're in the tied to the tracks and the train's coming. So I don't see any superfluous square footage or functionality or anything like that. And it's always really easy for someone to say, you know, say we were citing a high school or something like that. Oh, we'll just, you know, put it somewhere else. Well, there ain't no place else. That's the big problem. I mean, in terms of pieces of property for sale that are appropriate for that. So personally, I think it's important. I don't imagine that my semi-informed situation, you know, knowledge is gonna convince you to change your mind.
I mean, some of it also too is that we've come this far into just putting 3.7 into a fire station when we've got a police station that's gonna need updating that they, in the capital improvement plan, how much were they citing down the road? Plus, we've got a town office that needs fixing up. So at some point, we've got to, instead of look at department by department, figure out how collectively as a town we can mitigate a lot of this.
10,000 foot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think probably have a lot more insight on this than
Well, that's why I say.
the general public, so it's
At
hard,
best, I'm only a
you know,
semi.
yeah.
Sure.
And so I'm obviously seeing more, I guess, across the board within this, the fire department anyway, so it's not necessarily fair, and I probably should, I don't know if there's where to draw the line on if I abstain or not.
Oh, no, I mean,
But-
you come with a point of view that's as valid as anything else, so I wouldn't want you to abstain.
And like I said, I
I
still.
wouldn't want you to explain
we
it too
need to
much
do-
and bring
yeah.
someone on your side.
Yeah, we need to obviously do something with the station. There's obviously the concerns with EMS at some point, we gotta figure that out, but I think it's probably, what's 3.7, that's $1,000 per resident in Rockport. For a service, I mean,
Right.
also, I mean,
Even though it's not collected that way, but yeah.
right, that's, for a small town in Maine, that's kind of aggressive. And also when you start peeling, you know, the Band-Aid back of what service Rockport Fire is providing and starting to look at, I guess, EMS as a whole. That's hard, that we're kind of filtering it into our budget, you know, going 2 firefighters, and then next year will be 4 firefighters, and we're just kind of sliding that into the budget.
Firefighter / EMS.
Right.
Yeah.
Without saying, you know, over the course of 3 years, do we wanna up the town budget by $1 million to have full-time fire EMS? And instead, we're just kind of piecemealing it into our budget without even asking the town as a whole of a relatively big,
Yeah, it's huge. Potential.
potential,
expense.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not saying, Rockport, would you like full-time firefighters? We're saying, here you go.
But on the other hand, the sweet deal that we got into with Northeast was, you know, was them predicating their price to us on the hopes that they could get a lot of transport stuff, and that model didn't work out for them. So we've been living in a bubble, you know, propitious bubble, you know, one that benefited us for 7 years or so. And so I don't think we can keep going, not smelling the coffee, but it is, to your point, it is important to have the bigger discussion
Right.
of what are the priorities. I mean, I would bet that among the buildings that needed a lot of attention, that the town, this building and the fire station are distant, second and third, or fourth and fifth from the West Rockport Fire Station, because your next truck won't even fit in there, and things like that, so. My 2 cents.
I personally feel that everything gets more expensive year after year. We have a chance of getting $1 million, which saves us $2 million. And it's something that's going to happen, so I just feel like if we don't take advantage of it now, we're out $2 million.
I mean, we can still get the $1 million and put it towards something else that has a payment on it.
Megan said, didn't you just say that if we don't put it towards the fire station, we don't get
No.
it?
No,
If
we'd
it
still
doesn't go-
get it, and the board would have to decide how to reallocate it.
Okay,
But if we get it, if Article 3 and Article 4 passes, then it goes towards the
Okay.
fire station.
but I still, it's, how often do you get a chance to save $2 million? And you need a building.
But we're getting that chance if Article 3 passes regardless. So
Right.
that chance is completely
But
independent
the
from Article
million,
4.
no, but three
We have.
is worth $1 million, but
we
if
have-
you put 3 to 4, then it's suddenly worth $2 million is
Right,
what
right.
I'm saying.
But if you put
It's-
3 towards any other of our $6.2 million bonds that we currently have,
Yeah,
it's still worth that same money.
Still
Which
saving
some
that
of those
interest,
might
yeah.
have a higher rate than the station.
yeah,
Well, mathematically, I don't think that's true. If you put $1 million towards a project that only has 2 years left in a 30-year note, you can't save that much interest, because you're now that far down, you're big in principal and small in.
If John
Unless
does
you
that,
have-
he's not gonna last long.
And most of the outstanding bonds that we have now, have prepayment penalties on them, so we would end up paying the interest anyway, whether the bond expires or not.
I
That's how
mean, we
they
could
do it.
also use it to prevent bonds down the road too.
Yeah.
That's not,
It's not nothing.
Right.
To look at it that way, yeah.
So I guess if Article 4 doesn't pass now, realistically, how long before the West Rockport Fire Station comes back? Is it gonna be an every year thing until it passes,
Well,
I
like
mean,
the
it's gonna
library
depend
was?
on what someone wants to do with it.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
still wanna rebuild a
Right.
whole new station.
Sure.
so, I don't wanna go back too far into this, but part of the reason why, so, I'll back up a little bit more. So, due to ISO ratings, how insurance companies look at how, insured properties are, protected in the town of Rockport, you need to be so far away from, an actual fire station.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So, for Rockport, being able to have a station in West Rockport and a station in the village allows us to cover the vast majority of the residents.
Sure.
And then there are some who are on the edges who, South Hope Station there, or Rockland or whatever. So, right now, to be able to cover it, we need 2 stations. Now, there has been talk in years past, I think probably before things got started and cycling in on this specific plan, that let's look at a piece of property in the middle, build 1 station, everybody's hunky-dory, and, the problem is, 1, we don't have the property, and then 2, obviously you need to build a much bigger building.
Sure.
So, if we were to go back to your question, is when does this come back again? I think you have to figure out what is the lessons from, if it went down, why did it go down? Did it go down because of location? Did it go down because we're going to shift responsibilities from the village to West Rockport? I've heard a number of people say, well, I don't agree that, sort of we're shifting responsibilities in that regard. Not many understand that, but some do. And I think the third thing is that we don't really have Plan B ready to go in terms of what that would look like. So it's a bit difficult to say how long would it take. I mean, I think it's a critical need that the town of Rockport has a facility that could support the added expansion would take to be part of either first responding and or house an ambulance. I think we have to have that within the next 2-3 years. Whether or not our crews are actually the one, or we lease out the space to a private entity to take that space, that's up for still TBD. But the fact that we have the ability to house an ambulance is a really big deal. And logistically, if we are to work with Camden, Rockland, and us, West Rockport makes the most sense because geographically, we can get to places out of that West Rockport location that Camden can already easily cover in the village, or
Right.
Rockland could easily cover in Glen Cove, right? So this allows sort of the regional approach to sort of kick off. Having said that, it's expensive to get there because we're going from a barely two bay situation with a little connector room with shingles sliding off the roof to something that is a whole lot different. And that's a big change, to Clay's point. I mean, it's gonna shift things, but we're also at a point now where we don't even have a driver on this side of town right now. There isn't presently, there isn't someone on the department who can drive a truck. So we have people coming from West Rockport to come get a truck to drive to Obscene. That's just where our population is that are doing it. West Rockport's carrying the day. So do we build a station based upon where everyone's living right now for a 30-year, 50-year solution? No, but realistically, I think, where are we going? And to me, eventually we're gonna have a regional solution. And maybe it's just EMS, maybe it's fire and EMS, but in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I can't see that there isn't gonna be paid staff doing this job because there aren't enough people who are volunteering to take that time. Clay stands out on a whole bunch of levels, but there aren't many people who will do what Clay does. And all the other guys that are on that department, the John Wickendens and all these guys, they're not growing on trees. We're not finding them. So unfortunately, we have to sort of reconfigure and think about how do we work regionally so that way we're spending the least when we go into it. And that was part of the issue with the EMS conversation, is that we were walking in with great volunteers, but we didn't have paid staff, and that paid staff was sort of the price for operating. So I know that's way deep in the weeds on this, but I think in terms of vision, this fits with where we are now. And we don't have a plan B. The last point I just would quickly get to is there's a cost of not doing something, whether it's the increased prices or the time that's going to take us to redesign, that would be on top of whatever. So if we were to consider that as that 1 million, 2 million, there's a cost to that as well that we're going to incur, either increased cost to the building or just in our time to redesign, whatever that might be, that would set us back a bit. Could we have a better plan? Yes. But would it cost more to get the better plan? Yes. So.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
so we will vote on it unless there's any more topics of discussion on it. All right, so let's vote on Article 4. All of those in favor of approving Article 4 for the ballot? 5. All those against? None present to abstain. So how do are the people that are not present, are they technically, do they abstain or they just
We
don't
just
count?
put it on.
They don't
Okay.
count.
I'll let him know.
Let them know. Yeah, I'll let Mark know tomorrow. You don't count.
You don't count.
All right, so next one is Article 9, which is effectively all of the expenditures of the budget. The budget is just the expenditure half,
Yeah. So just to
not
quickly
including revenues.
I went through that with, I think Helen was asking, so when we went through the budget process, somebody asked me, well, how is this going to look if we do this by secret ballot? And I said, oh, we'll do it same as the categories as we did before. So what we did before in town meeting, there was an article for public safety that had police and fire and EMA and harbor, and then there was one for administration with, town manager and assessing and blah, blah, blah. And we had actually seven, right?
Mhm.
7 different categories for the budget. So we showed it to the board last night, and we said, pick or choose. Do you want the categories, or do you want to have it all in one vote? And their decision was to lump it all together, largely because when you look at all the articles, we're gonna have to vote, as voters, we're gonna have to vote on 17 articles. So, how long do people wanna be in the ballot box, or in the voting booth when they're doing these things? And so the thought was, let's just consolidate it into one. So, I know we talked about this as doing it the old way, but this is a little different. So, that means there's one vote on the expenditures and one vote for you all on the revenues, and that's the budget. There will be a public hearing, so just to there'll be a public hearing on this that the board will hold on May 8th, which effectively is like the conversation section of, normally at the regular town meeting, there's a debate on the floor. Well, the public hearing is really going to be that debate. And then obviously the hearing closes, and then we all go off and vote secret ballot, whether absentee or on the day of.
When is the election this year?
The 13th
Of
Does it,
June.
June, okay,
Yep.
that's what I thought.
does it make sense to formally invite and include the budget committee as, a portion of that meeting? Not, I wouldn't say portion, but have a presence as the budget committee? Because we really have those, we have a wide enough,
Yep.
range of personalities and viewpoints here that, and obviously more depth than the ordinary Joe, on the thing, so we can either explain our support or lack of support. And, let me put this in the form of a request. Could you request to the select board that the budget committee be a feature of that meeting on May 8th? Assuming any of us want to go to it.
Right, I think, as in the past, when you have, usually this public hearing is usually the time when land use stuff gets talked about. And the planning board chair is there, and they talk about, well, we're gonna do this, or the planner, that's usually what happens at that public hearing. I think it makes sense for the budget committee to play a role in that, however, whatever role they wish to play. I've seen town meetings where people had questions and there was nobody from the budget committee. I've seen town meetings where the budget committee basically ran the town meeting, so it can run the gamut. And I think,
But I think unlike being at the Opera House the day after the paper ballot, this has a educational component to it
It should.
that could be more significant and more spread out, more egalitarian, because people will have time to watch it. They'll have 5 weeks to watch it on their computer.
It's true.
So I think that becomes, and nobody can argue about postage. Because there are things that people who are on the line say, about the firehouse, and they say, oh, we could utilize this gift, and then the gift becomes effectively that much bigger. Where, and then you would pipe up and you say, it's the same thing we're doing stuff in the future, which it is. So
Well, that's a good point. I think just that last vote, 5-1 doesn't tell the story, because,
Right.
the firefighter in the room very nearly won the day for me, and on adding 2 more full-time employees, that's a big thing, and we rarely will take down employees. And there's 30 items here, so
Right.
you might have some that are for and there's, but they only like 20 of them, and you might have some that are against and there's only one that's a bugaboo.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And so, I mean, it's the way that it's presented, so that's, it is what it is. I mean, if I were on the board, I would've preferred it broken out a little bit more, cause I do think a lot of these departments are very different departments.
It certainly would have been more clear to the public if they were broken into sections like they were before. That would, how many sections were there?
7.
7, so 7. I think 7 for the budget and just the 1 for the revenue. Because I don't think most people probably don't understand what the revenue's all about anyway.
Right, that's true.
Whereas, to his point, some people may not want whatever's in the fire station, or the library, or the cemeteries, or the opera house. You've got the opera house at 188,000, I'm sure somebody's gonna say, what the? You know, we've heard all this stuff that's damaged in there, why? So, yeah, I would much rather they had done it as 7, so.
It just gets, it's, I don't know as there is a right way to do it. It is, there's certainly advantages to doing it. I mean, there's even really advantages to breaking it down more than that, because you still lump police, fire, and whatever it was, public
Yeah,
safety.
harbor,
All of
EMA.
that into one, which is, even that's tough,
And you've seen in the past where they'll cut
so.
one of the things out of the group and, or put
Right.
more in
Well,
or
what
whatever.
they'll do is they'll cut money that is associated to something they don't like,
Right,
but there's no guarantee that money won't, and like,
Yeah.
you say, this department has too many people, I wanna cut out 2 positions. Well, the budget for that department just went down by X, it was a successful vote, but there's no mandate, you're not really mandating, you can't mandate
Right.
that
Yeah.
the manager of that department does exactly what you want, they just have less money to work with.
yeah. Anyway,
No more caveat.
so do we have a motion on this yet, or do you need one?
We still need a motion.
I move we accept Article 9 as presented.
Yeah, we approve.
Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion to approve Article 9 for the ballot and a second. Any other discussion before we vote on whether or not to approve Article 9?
So this is my 3rd year doing this, and one concern I have is each year the budget's going up fairly significantly, and each year the discussion is that the chickens have come home to roost, we're gonna catch up this year, and then next year it increases more. Like I said, a lot of these, I would say most of these line items, I'm in favor of. I really don't know how I'm gonna vote, because I think in aggregate, that's a really big number. And I get that most of those things are needs, but I mean, I just know in my home, if I need to get the roof done, need to do the foundation, maybe my girls don't get a bathroom for another 2 years. And it feels like the last few years, not saying any of it's not good, warranted, or needed, and I think all the department heads have been conscientious in pulling their budgets together, but in aggregate, it is a pretty big number for our taxpayers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly a great point, and I think we're still, overall town budget, I think we're under the rate of inflation, right? Which you would assume if we're paralleling inflation, then our budget isn't changing maybe, but we are not saving money, and we can't cover a lot of emergencies that I think we should be able to cover, so I do agree that we aren't making hard cuts anywhere in our budget.
What are the emergencies you have in mind?
Like being able to pay for Robinson Drive washout, I mean, I know we're going back and forth with FEMA and all that stuff, but we didn't even have enough in our rainy day fund to cover that, you know? So, we're having to bond most everything large, which
Which is what bonds are for.
agreed, but it's just like saying that's what credit cards are for, which some people love credit cards and some people don't.
Mm.
So it's, you know, that,
I think a reasonable reply to, yes, you know, the culverts, the weather, the road washouts are all catastrophic in a financial sense. But at the same time, without speculation, without, you know, finally getting around to doing West Rockport Fire Department, for instance. If that were put off, that could in and of itself become a structural emergency if the roof were to let go. So I'm not trying to be dramatic, I'm just saying that it's a continuum, the whole thing, having enough money in the pot to fix storm damage, you know, that has a cost unto itself as well. And do we still have limitations we have guidance on what our, what do you call that now?
Unassigned fund balance?
Yeah, unassigned fund balance.
Yeah.
We have guidance based on the value of our town, what should be in there.
Yeah, based on the size of our tax commitment.
Okay.
So we, you know, by
So
this
that's-
budget, this budget, we are to policy right now. We increased the amount that we set aside in fund balance from 15 to 20% last May, after conversations with this group and how to get there. There was a commitment by the board to increase from 20 to 25%, which is the amount the auditors suggest that we should be at. That's not this budget, but the idea was to get there over a few different, over a couple different years.
Right.
And, you know, I think that's feasible if we don't see, to Craig's point, the type of increases that we've had. You know, we need to slow down, you know, and we can't force the rate of inflation. We can't force the fact that, you know, fuel goes up, you know, labor goes up. You know, we can't change that. In some cases, we're, you know, victims of that issue, but at the same token, we have to be able to persevere and be able to hold things in stride. Could we have paid for Robinson Drive? Yes. Our issues have been fighting the red tape of bureaucracy and FEMA. You know, if it was really a question of us writing a check, we could have written the check this year to do it. But FEMA didn't want to play ball with us and still doesn't want to play ball with us. And we may lose another construction season over the fact that FEMA won't work with us on this. Which isn't a solution that this group can figure out. We've got the congressional offices and everybody else working on this problem. But I think, you know, we do need to level out our costs. We need to level out our impact on the taxpayer. You know, and you know, I'm hoping next year is that year. I don't foresee that. I don't foresee a continued ascent.
Right.
I mean, judging by the CIP though, it's
Does a lot.
still kind of aggressive.
It is.
It might not be a linear ascent, but it's certainly
Right.
gonna be a stepped ascent.
Yeah, I mean, I think but we have to make sure we're making good decisions, right? So, you know, I think you know, in terms of need, we could go forward right now and say, we need to do something with this building, right? And I think we've talked about it enough, but the 3,700 others don't have that, they're not part of that conversation yet. Wastewater treatment, right? I mean, that's gonna be the next year, and that's not gonna impact this budget directly, but indirectly, there will be impacts, hopefully by the fact that we can control our own future with wastewater allows us to grow and develop and bring in businesses and bring in commercial and bring in even, or middle income homes so people can live here and work here. That's part of this equation as well. It's not part of this, but it's a necessary factor of this, because for us to continue to be a vibrant community, the COVID thing kind of happened, and there's still, there's pros and cons of it, but we need to continue to grow, because I can tell you the call for services is never higher than it's been right now. The difference from when I was on the board 20 years ago with Jeff to today is night and day difference. And that's okay. That's the evolution of where we are, and sometimes we say no, you know, we do say no, I can tell you. There are signs that people want put up that aren't getting put up, or, you know, changes to this or that just, we say no to. But we have a community that is just, a lot of new people who have desire to see us grow, and maybe not in a way that all of us in this room wanna see happen either. So, part of that's also us figuring out who we are. I'm not gonna go too far down that road, that's like comp plan and all that stuff, but there's a real conversation this community needs to have about what it wants to be and where it's going, you know? But I don't get too far afield of that, so.
When the accountant says we should up the percentage of our unassigned fund balance, are they saying that because it's a practical thing, like Clay says, you have the money there because if it rains, it's gonna rain hard? Or is it just something that accountants do because of something else? I mean, what's the motivation behind? I mean, that's a powerful voice. That's one person or one firm that said, by the way, 25%. And all of a sudden, 25% over the next 3 years. What's behind that?
It's actually the Government Finance Officers Association national, that's their national
Recommendation.
standard and recommendation, is 3 months worth of appropriations, which also includes school, county tax, all of that.
Does the school system, which is 2.5 times what our budget is, do they have their own, do they meet that on their own, or do we collect on behalf of the school? I know that we collect taxes
Right.
on behalf of the school. Do we
So
count our percentage?
our obligation to the school, so we should have equivalent of 3 months worth of our obligation to the school.
Of our obligation, yeah.
And their fund balances are much lower than ours, because we actually have to collect theirs, plus the county, plus our own. And so, in law and school budget law, they have a very narrow amount that they can carry year over year, like, I think they have to expend.
In their own version of it on the side.
Yeah, it's much more limited and focused than ours. And, you know, 20 years ago, it was 15% was like the standard. Everyone's gotta get to 15%. And some were there and some weren't. But I think there's an evolution of things, but that doesn't mean we can't spend into it. That doesn't mean
Sure,
we can't.
but it does mean that it costs us money to hold on to that money.
It also helps us
By
with
virtue
cash
of-
flow.
Yeah.
Like, cause we only collect the bulk of our revenue twice a year.
Like next week.
Right.
Like this week,
Yeah.
actually. We feel great right now with cash flow, but come back to us in, you know, August.
About 5.5 months.
Yeah, August is a different story.
All right, I'm finished blabbing, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, one other observation, I think the way we go, like A, B, C, right down the list every year, I think would have a lot of, I wanna say, people just agree, like we could hit 20 of these and just say, yeah, that's what they said they need, like, they're the experts, why are we asking whether law enforcement needs radar or not? Then I think there's a other subset that people are like, well, those are nice to haves. Can we come to a number that's 90% of that budget? And it's up to the town manager and the other departments to figure that out. I don't know if there's a good mechanism. It just becomes like a knockdown, drag out fight for each little thing. And everyone has their,
They do.
Oh, yeah, they siloed, they have their own territory.
right, so, I don't know, just an observation, cause a lot of these discussions just do go in circles.
They do.
Quick question too, you reminded me of something. I think you said that the reason we didn't have our meeting, need to have our meeting last week was because the select board put in the one thing we suggested, which was the mapping for assessing.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
They agreed, so.
Okay, just
Here,
wanted to make sure.
I'll get your happy sticker out for you.
You made it happen, Helen.
Yes. I'm a map person, I like them, they're fun, they're great.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 9? So with our motion and second, let's move towards a vote on Article 9, whether or not to approve it for the town warrant. All those in favor of approving Article 9? 2. Okay. All of those against? 3.
Can I have a minute?
Is,
No, probably not.
I think we can give you a minute.
We can
I'll
revisit.
give you 20 seconds.
Oh, jeez.
What,
I'm against it.
okay. So 2, 4, 4 against, 0 abstain. of
That's
those
gonna be an
present.
interesting one to explain.
I mean, it's, yeah, you're gonna run into that when you have an entire budget lumped into one article. So,
So the people that voted against it have particular
yeah.
issues with some of the A through AD.
So can we talk a little bit second about what happens if it gets voted down? Because there was some conversation last year about that. I just wanna sort of explain how this works.
That's
So-
real shit today.
That is, yeah. So by secret ballot, we'll know that night what's gonna happen, right? There'll be a select board we'll have a full select board the following evening. We would then have to go back. The board would have to meet, craft a new budget. They'd have to presumably involve the budget committee, meet again, go through what a new budget would look like, have an abbreviated budget process in about a 2-week time period, exactly a 2-week time period. And then there would have to be a vote on the budget, by June 30th.
You would
So-
presumably have a public meeting in
That'd
the
be-
middle of that.
No,
No,
What started this scenario that you just described?
if the budget went down,
the town people.
budget
The
fails,
town, okay.
so that if Article 9 fails, the whole budget comes back, the select board would come up with a new budget, they'd meet with the budget committee would have to offer a recommendation on that. 7 days from that meeting would be the date, so basically there's like a 7-day window where a new budget would have to be drafted, the budget committee would have to put their recommendations on it, and then about 7 days later, there'd be an open town meeting to vote on it.
May I suggest if that happens, that you divide these up into the 7 pieces?
Well, not up to me,
I know, but
not up to me,
obviously there are serious concerns about
sure,
pieces.
sure.
So if you can get at
But-
least,
I think the point is that if that happens, that's not a great scenario for the town, right? And so, yes, that, if we had, open town meeting, we'd work through it on the floor, but this is the path, so the board has said, and away we go. But basically, we would have 7 days to come up with a budget, 7 days where there would be time for discussion out amongst the public. There'd be an open town meeting, probably school or maybe the bottom of the library, and then there'd be a vote. And you would hope on the floor you'd be able to find common ground and get to a number.
I'm not gonna be here the rest of that
Okay.
night, so.
Well, if it doesn't happen, if you're not able to come to a number that night, then obviously you close things down.
Yeah,
So that's where we're at. So hopefully we don't go down that route, but just as an FYI, that's sort of what the path for this would look like, so.
But also, given the fact that, the people in this room, aside from the select board, are the people that have probably spent the most amount of time with this budget. If this is indicative of the rest of the town, there's a good chance, that.
Yeah.
But also
I don't
last
think
year,
there's any chance of this not getting passed,
but last year, the budget committee did not
We did the same
approve
thing
the
last year.
budget, and the
Right.
budget passed.
Right.
We're just a small group of people.
Specifically didn't recall that,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the budget, I can remember voting on it,
Yep.
the budget committee,
That's right.
selectmen were for it, the budget committee was against it. And it didn't change,
A darn thing.
this committee did not influence anyone really, it
I
seemed like
think
in
there
the
was a
town.
more mixed bag though, because you had the breakouts.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we're with
Moving
regard
right
to
along.
select board
Number 10.
sword.
Yeah,
Article 10.
Hey, come on.
All
Jeopardy,
right.
7:30. Let's do it.
All right, Article 10. So that's with regards to the revenue of the town.
I make a motion to vote in the affirmative of approving Article 10.
I-
Second.
Yeah,
Okay. Any discussion on Article 10? I think my biggest thing with that is just continued use of the unassigned fund balance. If we, every year we say, oh, we'll save it next year, and then, I mean, I've only been doing this for a couple of years, so that
this could be the year.
does not carry a lot of weight, but every year. So I don't, I mean, at some point, it just kind of seems silly to contribute to it and then pull out from it. I know it's a mechanism to save someday, but at some point, again, I think we just need to start saving more and I don't know.
I tend to agree.
Call the question.
I agree, I don't know.
Yeah, so, well, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on Article 10? Okay. Let's make a vote on Article 10 if we want to approve Article 10 for the town warrant. All of those in favor? 5. And 1 against. 0 abstain, those present.
The last one, I was 11.
Yeah. Okay, Article 11. That basically, I think just has to do with the, unassigned fund balance, right?
No, it's basically transfer the unexpended balances, so basically at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
We put into fund balance, if we have overdrafts, we can spend them out of fund balance. And use tax abatements out of overlay.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve Article 11.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, any other discussion on Article 11? Okay, let's move toward the vote. All of those in favor of approving Article 11 for the town warrant? That's 6-4. 0 against, 0 abstain. And I think that was the last one with regards to the budget.
Well, having made a complete idiot of myself in this meeting, I did bring my nomination papers for the budget committee. If anyone would like to sign that.
Ooh, oh, sure.
I'm happy
If you'll
to.
let me use your pen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. Let's
My
adjourn the
apologies.
meeting. Adjourn the meeting.
Before you start electing
No.
yourself.
I decided I couldn't count on the three
Yeah.
write-in votes. so-
Any other discussion on anything in this meeting?